everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the FitPro Podcast. We are trying something out a little bit different this week, so bear with us if we do get a bit techie and try and fix a few things. But so far, it seems to be working from what I can see. So we'll kick things off with today's episode. So first of all, before we jump into what we're talking about today, Dave, how are we doing?
Doing okay. We're doing okay. Like you said, we're trying something new today. So yeah, we'll see us watching screens and typing a few things to try it out. Basically, we were always using StreamYard before. Riverside is a slightly different platform. On this platform allows us to automatically upload this episode directly to all the podcast channels. It does loads of clippings as well, so then we can use it across different other channels as well. So yeah, let's give it a go. But today's actually quite an interesting episode, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm quite interested. It actually came about from a post that you did, was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember. I think it was yesterday. About like it must be nice being your own boss, and when people say that to you, and that huge list of things you put down, I thought was quite interesting. I'm not going to go through every single one of those things today, but the concept of that, of how people perceive being your own boss and what they believe that's like, I think there's a huge difference between people that never worked for themselves or never ran a business, who are maybe employed, what they believe it's like being your own boss. They have this kind of things of grandeur. And a perfect example of that is I can remember we did the FitPro Social event in Cardiff, and we went to the venue that you had there. And I can remember talking to the guy behind the bar, one of the guys behind the bar there, and is that where you guys are from? And I said, oh, we all have, fitness businesses, gyms, that kind of thing. Because you're rich then. And that was the first thing he said to us. He all came out like, you must have loads of money, you must be rich, you must have loads of free time. And that was his concept of what it was like to run a business. And I think that is something worth unpacking. I definitely think it's worth unpacking.
I've got the flip side to that though.
Pardon?
My parents and my grandparents were always like, when's it time you get a proper job? Maybe it's time like you start settling down now and go and get a proper job. Because obviously you need to buy a house, you need to do all this and do all that. So yeah, you've had good fun, but I didn't get a proper job now.
Mm.
And like I say, it's difficult if like you've never been self-employed and you don't understand how it all works.
Yeah, it's very different. I was always quite lucky on that side of things, just from my parents. My parents have, my dad's always run a business. He's had a business for like quarter of a century now. So like it's I don't know why I say quarter of a century. 25 years would be fine just to say, but he's had a business for a long time. So I kind of like, and even before then, he was directors of businesses. So like I was quite used to the idea, and they never really questioned it. If I wanted to go and start a business, they was cool with that. So I never really had that as such, but I I have had like things like friends in the past that have said similar kind of things, where they said like, why don't you just go in, like, it seems like a lot of hard work for you, or why don't you just go and get a proper job? If you want to make this work, you've got to get a house, you've got to pay your mortgage off and all that kind of stuff. You've got to save for a pension. Yeah, I've had a few friends say that, but I've been quite lucky on the family front. Very different, I think, from my side, because I was brought up in that environment.
Yeah, 100%. So some of the things on this list, the post actually did quite well. I was just trying to write a load of different stuff down. So the post was, when a friend says, must be nice being your own boss while you are. And then we listed a load of different things. And something that we just said then before we actually went live was, yeah, like finishing at 5 and then not having to do anything else then until 9 a.m. the next day, whereby for me, I train 8 till 9 most nights, and then I will sit there and write the emails for the night. Then sometimes they can take an hour to really think about what the email is going to be, and do I need to put any creatives with it, or do I need to put any success stories in it? And that's 9, 9:30, and then you want to relax and shut down, but then you get a fucking email come through about someone moaning or cancelling, or something's gone wrong, so you're dealing with that, and before you know it, it's 11:30. You go to bed, you wake up in the morning, and someone's payment has failed yet again. It fails every single month, and you've warned them many times that if your payment fails, that's the end. But you're like, oh, they're a nice person, they will pay, but now I've got to get a bit stressed, got to chase them for their payments. Like it just doesn't stop.
It never seems to stop. And I think you could argue that you can build a team, you can have systems, you can have processes in place to deal with some of that stuff. But for anyone that's never done this, and if you're that kind of way inclined, like quite entrepreneurial, it never stops in here anyway. So like you can have a system that deal with missed payments, or you can have staff and teams that help with stuff. You could say, I'm not going to go and check my emails if you want to at that time. But in reality, you feel responsible for that business anyway. So you are responsible for that business. So you want to make sure things are working right because you have, you've got your responsibility for your mortgage or your rent or whatever it is for your livelihood. But if you're employing people, then you've got responsibilities for their livelihoods, for their mortgages, for their rent. It's a lot of responsibility being a business owner, especially when you employ people. So I feel like sometimes you feel like you have to be there all the time, you have to be on the ball all the time. But even if you had everything in place, you had the best staff team in the world, which is its own story in itself, or you have all the systems and process and automations in place, even when you go home, you say you want to sit there and relax, how long does it take for your brain to start thinking about other ideas or what it is you've got to go and do? I honestly don't think you truly switch off for any reasonable amount of time. You might find things that you do, like for example, me, I like climbing. So when I go climbing, all I can do is focus on what's in front of me because it keeps me focused. So I get maybe a 5-minute route where I'm actually completely focused. I'm not thinking about anything else. But other than that, I can be back onto work mode or have little moments that take me back into work mode all the time. So I think really one of the big things that tends to happen with most business owners is you don't switch off. There's no, as you say, going home at 5 o'clock, switching off completely from it, sitting there, having something to eat, having a cup of tea, watching Netflix, whatever it is. It doesn't really happen like that when it's your own business because you're always thinking. It's always there in your head.
Well, the perfect example is you do switch off. You're halfway up this mountain, you switched off, and then you see a little crack that you can put your hand in or whatever, and you think, oh, you know what? That actually reminds me of X, Y, and Z. It doesn't have to be a negative thought all the time, or this person is a pain, or that person's a pain, or this person's ruining my life. There's always those other things. Like you say, you could be sat there just relaxing, watching Netflix, watching the football, doing something, and then you see a post from somebody and you think, wow, that's an interesting post. I would love to do a post like that. Or that's an interesting topic. I hadn't thought about it that way. And then straight away, you're back into work mode. Again, not negative stuff, but positive stuff that you're thinking, oh, I like that idea. Wonder how I could film that. Or I like the way they explain that. Wonder how I could explain that. Or I like how they recorded that or edited that. And then next thing you know, you're thinking, okay, I'll add this to my social media plan. Or your competition starts posting a lot more. They're running more ads than you. And you're seeing their ads pop all the time and you're getting frustrated. So you're like, cool, I'll write a new content plan. I'll write a new ads plan. I need to go and record a video. And then at 11 o'clock at night, you're there, like down at the gym or somewhere filming new content and stuff. Yeah, like you say, you just don't switch off.
And I think, like you said, that it's not. Sometimes people think it can be a negative thing not switching off, but sometimes it's positive, and sometimes you get energy from that. Like when I get ideas, I don't know about you, Dave, but when I get ideas, I literally enjoy it. Like sometimes when I go off on a tangent, it's quite an enjoyable thing to go through. Think, oh, it's the new idea. I want to experiment and find new ways of making things happen, especially with tech. Like a lot of the work I do is systems and tech orientated, so it's when I'm finding something new, I love learning about it and exploring it and seeing if I can make it do something or even try and break it just to see what I can do with it. Or like I love that process of it. And that can mean sometimes I'm not working till, I mean, last night's a perfect example, 2 o'clock in the morning, just because I went on a tangent. I thought, this is awesome. I'm enjoying it. So I did it. And I think sometimes that can happen, but it doesn't always have to be a negative thing from a personal perspective. I do think what's important if that stuff happens, and I think it will happen as a business owner, like you'll get ideas, especially when you're trying to go off and relax. Like some of the best ideas I've ever had, and I'm sure it's probably the same for you, Dave. Like you go on holiday, you slow things down a little bit, you get some of your best ideas. And you can go off on these kind of missions and it could be some of the best things that ever happen in your business because you've got these ideas when you're switched off. But I think one of the most important things to do with that is understand it's not just you that's affecting too. So if you're in a relationship with somebody or you've got family, like have conversations with people, explain to them what it's like let them know, like this is the what I'm doing the business for. This is how I think sometimes, especially if they've got a kind of day-to-day job. If they're doing like a 9 to 5, it's going to be a very different thought process, and it's going to be very difficult for them to maybe empathize because they've never been in that situation before and never have to think the way you have to think. So I think it's important if you are in this position and you've got, you're running your own business and you've got maybe people in your family, your close family, older kids, wives, husbands, whatever, partners, have that conversation with them to tell them, make sure you're open and honest about it all, because they're going to think you're working all the time. And all they're going to see, because that's all they're used to, is, oh, you're at work. and it's not that. It's a completely different thing, and it's important to have that conversation with them, I think, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point, that where they think you're always working. And granted, yes, you are always working, but I think we also get good at quite multitasking as well. So we are able to almost work, or our mind kind of veers off to work while you're socializing with friends or whatever. And like, again, you might play five-a-side and you go to the pub after the five-a-side or whatever, and then they're all chatting about what happened in work today or the stresses that they have, and you're kind of like, you're in the conversation, but at the same time you're somewhere else. But then moving on, so like a lot of what we've talked about so far is in the mind, what's going on in your head and all these thoughts about it. But at the same time, when somebody is working, let's say a simple 9 to 5 job, their requirements are restricted to what the boss has given them. So, for example, here in the office, the team are creating the creatives, they're optimizing landing pages, they're looking at numbers, they're fixing the landing pages, they're doing everything they can to get the best results for the clients. And that was the same when you have a PT studio. Your staff are doing this and that, but then your staff are not, like it says in this, booking a plumber or fixing the toilet seat because somebody's whacked it too hard, or having to sit down with a lady who always cries after her session, or filming a reel with no tripod while your battery's at 2%, or being asked, can you pay next Friday for the 14th time in a row? There's all that side of things as well that I think a lot of friends and family don't see happening. They just see you always on a laptop. They see you always posting pictures and videos and stuff, but they don't actually get to see underneath the bonnet per se what other stuff you're doing that isn't really part of what you actually are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, there's that perception, isn't there, of it all? I think especially when we take into account social media, like me, you're the same. We'll post stuff about what we're up to sometimes. So yeah, admittedly, we're a little bit more open about the ups and downs of running a business in our content, but sometimes a lot of content isn't like that, and a lot of time you'll still see the good side of it. Like in our case, like traveling, for example, like to travel a lot, so we do lots of pictures around that, and we're working and traveling. And people go, "It must be amazing to work and travel." I'm like, okay, but there's pros and cons of it. There's always pros and cons of it. I think people have that perception of it all. But because of that, and because that's what's shown, like you said, they don't see that other side of it at all. And even when you have conversations with your friends, I think this is maybe a very British thing as well. Even if you didn't have social media, and someone said, "Oh, how are you doing? How's work?" For most people, go, "It's all right. It's good. We're doing this. We're doing this." You talk about the good stuff, the positive stuff. There's not many people like where I don't know. We'll talk to each other saying, "Oh, this was really good today, but this was also really, really crap." I think like I'm having to deal with this at the moment because we have like we're both within business, we can talk about that kind of stuff. We know what it's like. But sometimes when you're speaking to people outside of that, we don't have those conversations with them because we feel they can't empathize with us or they can't relate to what we're talking about. So maybe we don't show them that side of things. Maybe that's just a possibility. But yeah, there's so much stuff. I'll give you a really good example actually. My brother's taken over my parents' business recently. So my dad's retiring, or kind of retired at the moment, and my brother's taken over. So when he started there, he was an employee of that business. So he was doing a job doing production management in the business. And now he's obviously becoming more of a manager. And the conversations I have with him now about the difference in his day to day is incredible. He's at home working all the time. He's thinking about different things at home. He's dealing with so much crap other than his actual job. So it's like his job's still doing some production stuff, but he's dealing with little things like sorting the painting out for like a boardroom, or decorators have to come in, sorting some pension stuff out that's randomly come up. Literally the other day I went down there to go and see him, and I walked in, I was going to go to the coffee machine to get a coffee. I was like, "Oh, you can't get the coffee machine. Ants have got into the coffee machine." So literally the ant infestation in this coffee machine. Like, you cannot write that kind of stuff that happens, but no one else in that business is going to deal with that. They've got 16 staff in there. No one's going to deal with it. Tom's got to find a way of dealing with it. Even if he was to get someone to do it, he's still got to find a way of dealing with it, or allocating that job to be dealt with. And that's the side I think, like you say, people don't see.
Yeah, 100%. Like I just thought what you were saying then about talking to your friends and you don't kind of explain everything to them. The perfect example is for us, had the studio, all the people at football, all my friends, people I knew around Cardiff knew we had the gym. So it was like, oh, so how are the clients getting on? You bringing new clients in, you seem to be growing really well. And I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? That fucking landing page I built last week is really optimized at the minute and it's doing really well. And that first automated text message that goes out is actually getting a lot more people to play. Sorry, yeah, clients doing really well at the gym, and gym, yeah, is growing nicely. But like they only think about one thing. But then you're like, yeah, you know what? Let me tell you about it. So when somebody comes in, they give me the name, email, and phone, and then I need to send a text message. But the text message isn't clicking. I'm not getting enough people replying. What do you think I should do? And they're just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
And
didn't even know you
they
did
are
all
the
that.
funny parts to it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the nice things about having or being surrounded by people sometimes who have their own businesses, because sometimes you can have those conversations with them. But when you speak to people having it, it's they just don't know because it's something that's completely alien to them, what you're talking about. I also think as well, most people have no idea that that's what's involved. A really good example is I'll use this because you obviously you do some website stuff for people and sales pages, is actually looking at things like websites and sales pages. The majority of people you would speak to would think if I'm going to build a website, will think you're just going to have like a handful of pages and it takes you 20 minutes. And it's all about the pretty design. They don't think about all the other stuff that goes into making that site work well. Like, how's it going to convert? What's the purpose of those pages? What's actually going on the back end after someone's been through that process, been through that site? And to try and explain that to somebody who's not in business
Yeah,
is
yeah,
very
yeah.
difficult. And not to mention, you've had to think of that and figure that out. Or if you haven't, you've had to go research, you've had to learn, you had to invest. All these different things you have to do as a business owner that if you're outside of a business, you probably have no idea even exists.
And I think, like you're saying there, I think that's why a lot of business owners become real good friends with other business owners, because not only that they have things in common, but the things that they have in common, they both understand and they can share the frustrations or the wins or the insights or the things around it. For example, there's one on the final point here was holding a consultation call in the car park outside Lidl. There's probably loads of people watching and listening to this either now or in the future and thinking, God, yeah, I remember doing a consultation call outside here or sat on this road or I've done it in this place or I've done it in here. And I remember when I've doing some of these and like you couldn't explain this to somebody that worked just a normal job or somebody that didn't do these type of things. Yeah, people that do, you can have a laugh and a joke about it and you can explain those other things. It's like updating your bio for the 9th time this month. If I said that to my mum, she'd have no idea. But somebody that is quite active on Instagram, let's say, for example, would be like, yeah, I totally understand that. So yeah, I think that's why lots of business owners become really good friends with each other. They might have nothing in common previously, but the commonality is they both talk the same language, and that's what brings them together. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing. And if you don't have anybody to talk these frustrations and issues and languages with, then go and find some other business owners who know this type of stuff and you can explain and share these points with as well.
Yeah, definitely getting involved with like the masterminds, networking events, things like that. You can find business owners just to go and talk to and speak to, and it does make a big difference. Just quick on that story there about doing the phone call outside Lidl. On my wedding day, about 20 minutes before I got married, I actually took a sales call on my mobile. Literally, it came through. I've been trying to get this sale for ages, and she rang. This client, right? Well, this client, she came a client. She rang, and I took it. Literally about 20 minutes. Sarah was on the way up. We'd just done all the like talks and stuff to make sure we wasn't like getting married for any other random reasons. And then literally about 15, 20 minutes before, so I was about to go in. I took the call, got the sale, but took the call. I mean, I managed to call her off to say that, but that's the difference. At the time, like, and it was a big thing. It was a big deal. It was a big contract I needed to get in, and I was going to take it. But most people wouldn't even, if you're employed and your boss rang you on your phone, for example, you wouldn't
On your
answer on your
wedding day.
wedding day.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's one when we were getting the new car from BMW. For some reason, I hadn't blocked my diary out, so someone had booked in an onboarding call for ads management halfway through. And like, if getting a car, it can take a bit of time, all the checks and paperwork and everything. So I got there. We were there for maybe 45 minutes. I was like, this is taking too long. I've got to call in 15 minutes or 10 minutes now. I need to go and sit somewhere and do this call. And they were like, put me in this room. And behind me was a big BMW picture. And they were like, oh, where are you? Oh, just in a coffee shop somewhere, you know. They just got all these pictures of cars and just did it there. But like you say, these are funny things that a lot of business owners will be able to relate to. I think we talked about one the other week where the pipe burst on the 3rd of December in the gym, and we were away in North Wales. It was somebody that came down to the gym just to make sure everything was all tidied up and cleaned up, ready for Boxing Day when we opened again. And they walked in and they could see this water everywhere. And like lots of people will have had tap bursts or flood bursts, and they can relate to it. So yeah, being your own boss must be nice. It does have its perks.
Yeah, it definitely has its perks. And I think that those perks are obviously quite well seen by another thing that a lot of people say to you. When people say to me or to you, like, it must be nice being your own boss, another thing I get sometimes is, you guys are so lucky. I get that quite a lot. So because we run a business or we might travel a bit or whatever it is, we get told that we're lucky. I always find that quite interesting. I don't know, if I said to you, like, you're lucky to be your own boss or you're lucky to have the things that you have, how would you respond to me? If I was a business owner and I said that, would you say, yeah, I'm lucky?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. I always find it quite interesting. Like, I think to some people, if it's a person that doesn't have a business or never done it, I'd say, yeah, there's definitely some luck involved. As in, like, I was in the right place at the right time for some things, without a doubt. I always think there's an element of luck. And my opinion's actually changed on that in the recent years. Before, if someone said to me, you're lucky, and I said, there's no luck involved, I'm like, I just work hard. Like, I hustle when I need to get stuff done. Like, I've took risks, I've made investments, I've done things that other people have not been willing to do in order to do this. Like, it's not just like getting a job. You have to take investments, you have to take risk. And with that, you could say there's no luck involved in terms of the level of anyone's success. But I actually don't think that's true anymore. About 3-4 years ago, I definitely changed my tune on that a little bit. I think luck plays some part in it, because sometimes you have to come across the right idea, or you'll be inspired by something, or you'll just be in the right place at the right time. You don't know what those things are. There might be ideas that you've had or decisions that you've made that didn't necessarily lead you to where you wanted to be, but something might have happened because of that decision you made. So you could say, I was lucky to pick that event to go to, or I was lucky to go and meet this person, or I was lucky to bump into this person at this place.
Yeah.
So you could say that. So it's a hard balance. I think there's some element of luck, but I also think it's hard work involved.
You earn your luck. I'm sure we've done an episode on this before about people kind of looking at other businesses and just saying they're lucky and then getting down about it and then not being confident in yourself. But I personally think you earn your luck. Like everybody, if you work hard enough, things will appear, and you might think, wow, that's a stroke of luck. Like the perfect example is to win the lottery, you have to enter. So if you don't enter, then you can never win the lottery. But by entering, you've definitely increased your chances that your numbers are going to come in. Or let's say you have this one client who's a referral magnet, and they just bring person after person after person in. Now, if that person didn't submit their details and you didn't phone them to get them booked in, then you've missed the opportunity to work with somebody who's going to give you all these people. Was it luck that that person submitted those details at that moment of time? Not really. Something you've done, something you've put out has led that person there. You phoned that person and you just stumbled across the right person at the right time who's going to do it. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's luck. It's more you've earned it. You've done stuff to get you to that point. And then because you've worked hard at it, the fruit of the labor is shown. Like things now appear, things are now working.
Yeah, I think that's a really quite nice way of putting it. And I think you're right there. So yeah, you could stumble across this person, or you happen to meet this person in the right place, but you could say that is lucky that you've found that person there. But in reality, the fact you put yourself in those positions, and it's interesting, isn't it? The more times you put yourselves in those positions, the luckier you seem to get. It's always a numbers game, wherever you look at it. Like if you happen to meet the right person at, say, a networking event, and that completely transforms your business, you've probably gone to 100 different networking events before you found that one person. And I guess that's the whole concept of making your own luck. You just do enough of it consistently,
Well, the perfect
eventually.
example there could be you never really spoke to anybody at any network meetings, and then all of a sudden you decided to start talking to people, and oh my God, that person is the perfect person to partner up with or refer me or all that extra stuff. So yeah, it's nice being your own boss. It really is nice being your own boss. Granted, there is a load of extra stuff that comes with it, which a typical person won't do if they're not their own boss. But the perks of being your own boss, for me personally, far outweigh.
The negatives.
Yeah.
Or the other side of it.
So, got a question for you then. What job would you accept to go back to working for somebody else?
That's a good question. It's a difficult one because a lot of the jobs I've had in the past have been freelance ones. So like I'm always, even when I did the venture, I was still freelance for people. To be honest with you, what I'd probably do, I'd do something outdoors, so it's completely different. And it's got to be something outdoors, but I couldn't be in the venture industry because as much as I love that industry, it's all freelance. So you don't really go and work for people. So that doesn't really count. But I told you, I'd probably do something like rope access or arborists, that kind of thing, like working in the outdoors, working in the woods, that kind of stuff.
So, in
And
other
try and
words,
be
something that you really enjoy.
yeah, really enjoy it. That's what I do. Something I enjoy doing. I would never do anything else that I wouldn't just go and work in an office. I could have done. I could have gone. In a perfect example, I had a great opportunity to go and do that. I could have gone over and took over my parents' business, but I didn't want to because I didn't want to go and do that because I didn't want to spend a career sat in an office. I just didn't want to do it, and I wouldn't do it. So it's yeah. I guess it is. I guess it is. If I went to do, so what about you? What would you do?
I think I'd have to get back into football.
Yeah.
But then I don't know. I think if I did a normal 9 to 5, I'd just be bored of an evening. I would be like, what do I do? I think because now we've been doing it for so long, and people out there will probably understand that feeling as well. You've been doing it for so long now. It's ingrained into you. I would love to be able to put the PlayStation on. I mean, I would love to open up the laptop and play Football Manager all day. I mean, I would just love to be able to do that.
And it's hard, isn't it, when it's your own
Yeah.
business? Sometimes it's difficult to do that because you feel like you can either do something else or your attention moves quite quickly. So you'll do it for a bit, but then you'll go off to do it all day. Personally, as much as I think I'd love to be able to go and do that, I say it all the time. So like, I love to go and have like a full day off doing certain things. And, like I try to sometimes, but I never fully do, and I don't think I could do it constantly all the time. I think, and Sarah said this to me before, like if I went to go get a normal job, I'm sure most business owners at some point said I could just go and get a job at McDonald's or something like that. I'm pretty sure everyone said it at some point in their business career. And I think Sarah really summed it well, saying like you wouldn't last 5 minutes because as soon as you're in there, you'd be like, I could do this better. They should be doing this instead. I think this would be a better way of approaching this. And I think that's the thing with people that generally start their own business or a bit more entrepreneurial. The way they think is different. So to even have maybe a normal 9 to 5 job, I hate the word normal, but I can't think of a better way to describe it, a 9 to 5 kind of employment job, I don't think everybody can fit into that mold. Just like I don't think everybody can fit into the mold of an entrepreneur either.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Not everybody should be their own boss. We've both seen this so many times in our people who thought, great on them, let's take that leap. Mm-hmm. And then they've sunk thousands and they're in huge debt, and then they finally come to the realization that this isn't for them.
No. And that's fine. Sometimes it's better to take the leap and try it out. As long as you pay attention, as long as you're paying attention to the numbers, details, and know when it's your time and go, right, at least you tried and see if it's right for you. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I think that's something that's a very brave thing to do. It's always brave to start a business. It always is, because there's a lot of risk involved from it. But I mean, we talked a lot here about risk. We talked a lot about like all these other things you do. I mentioned a few times that there is some good things, like the positives, and we wouldn't not run our own business. The benefits outweigh it, but we haven't really talked too much about the benefits. So, for you, what are like the benefits of being your own boss? Why are we doing all these other things? Why are we putting up with all this other stuff we've talked about today for these benefits? I wonder what they are. What are they for you?
I don't know. I think it all, again, will come down to the industry that we work in, because we are laptop based.
Yeah.
So we can do this from anywhere. And that was one of the restrictions I did feel about when we worked from a studio. Granted, when I was working in the studio, I did have FitPro at the same time. So if a client would message, say the ads are struggling, I never had my phone. That was like never a thing. I'd have my watch and I'd see a message pop up and I'd be itching for this session to finish in order to be able to get there. So being on the laptop, I think the main thing I love about it is I can work whenever I want, whenever I want, whatever time I want. I think that is definitely the big perk, but more specifically, if it was being fixed based, then I think, yeah, the flexibility of it, really.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think the flexibility is probably the biggest thing, and actually, I think autonomy. I always used to use the word flexibility, but I think flexibility means you can bend and move things around you.
Yeah.
Well, I think with a business owner, you have autonomy over it, which means you can choose. You can choose when you want to spend your time, how you want to spend your money, what things you want to go and do, and you can decide how far you want to take your business. There's not many other things that are uncapped in terms of earning potential or ability to create more time for yourself, because at the end of the day, you're fully responsible for that. So you get to choose. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but you still get to choose. And it also means you can decide to accept consequences. Like both me and you could just go at the end of this, don't want to go work for the rest of today. That's fine. We could do that. There's probably going to be some consequences of doing that.
Just
Good
a
ones,
few.
bad ones, just a few, but it's the fact we can still choose to go and do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I think that's to me, that's the key thing. We've got that autonomy where we can make decisions, we can decide, or even build businesses. We can design our businesses around what we want.
And I
But
think
when you're
that's probably
employed, you can't do
I
that.
think that's the big one. Like you say, autonomy and all that type of stuff. It all depends on the type of business that you own and run. But I think the biggest one for most is going to be that you can create a business that matches your lifestyle and your needs and desires, rather than when you're working for somebody else, you're restricted by the parameters that I've given you. Like me and you can work from anywhere. Obviously, when I had the gym, I couldn't work from anywhere because I had to be in the gym. But saying that, I could decide what time the sessions were going to be. I could decide how many people, how much I was going to charge, how much we were going to bring coaches in, and all that type of stuff. So I could create a business that worked for me. And I think for most, it is that point of you can create a business that works for you.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice way to round things up for today. There's so many. When someone says to you that it must be nice running a business, it is, honestly, it is good. If you get it right, you have the right things in place, and you do it properly, and you approach things properly, it is an amazing opportunity for you to do whatever you want to. And you can create literally the world you want for yourself with your business if you're willing to put the work and effort into it. Definitely don't think it's easy. There's lots of things you have to do that you probably don't think about. And that's just part and parcel of it. But definitely the benefits, at least for me and Dave, from the sounds of things, definitely outweigh the negatives of it. Cool. Well, I think we'll round it up there for today's episode. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Anyone that's commented as well, that's amazing. Thank you for that. If you want to go and find out more of our episodes, you'll be able to check them out on our YouTube channel. And like Dave says, we're going to try something out new today, a new software, so you hopefully you might see more of our content floating around as well from this. So we'll see how that pans out. And you'll know next week whether we're actually on here or back on StreamYard again, how well it actually pans out. But other than that, I think that's it from me.
Appreciate it all, guys, and we'll see you all next week.
See you soon. Bye-bye.